Welcome to Launch Code, a premier business podcast, starring Evan Hafer, Matt Best, and Jared Taylor.
Welcome to Launch Code. We are here at SHOT Show in Las Vegas. Co-host here, and we have John Devine from Devine Canines, former SEAL, and he does dog training. We're going to kind of dig into that. Had dinner with John last night, and really, really interesting stuff. A lot of really good stuff to talk about. So, John, thanks for coming on, man.
Hey, thanks for having me on.
Tier, thank you for being here.
I'm happy to be here and eat all the food in your room.
Yeah, well, there's not much left. We've emptied the mini bar, and there's not much left to consume. But anyway, so John, let's kind of jump right into it. So you're from the Northeast, right?
Correct. Hence the Patriots hat. I know you viewers at home can't see this, but you have a Patriots hat on.
Big game for you guys.
Did something happen?
Yeah, I think there was a sporting event.
It was a sports ball.
Yeah, there you go, sports ball. So you told me like you'd always wanted to be a SEAL from the time you were a kid.
Correct.
Grew up with Dom Rosso, another
Did.
SEAL,
Yep.
and you guys wanted to do it together. So your path was a little bit different than his. So tell us a little bit about where'd you grow up, sports you played, high school, like what was that? Where'd it come from?
So I grew up in pretty much the most suburban town in all of New England. It was very, very much like middle class, soccer town kind of thing, and just your typical suburban kid growing up. I played football, I wrestled, did a little bit of rugby. But to be honest, I was never a stellar athlete in any one sport. I wasn't all-star anything.
Right.
I was just this stubborn kid that just, wanted to do a little bit of everything,
Just a generalist, good at everything, great at nothing.
Pretty much, yeah. It's like a Swiss Army knife.
There you go. And then so you went from high school to college.
Correct.
Before enlisting.
I did. So I went to school first, so that's why I joined in about 2004, went through boot camp then. And, Dom, he went in straight in. I mean, he was, went in during September 11th, essentially.
Yeah.
Where at the time, I kind of looked at college as something I wanted to finish before I went in. But I mean, I think also there could have been, some critical thinking in me when I'm like a teenager. It's like, am I really ready for this shit?
Yeah.
So, there could have been that too.
Right. What'd you study in school?
History and political science.
Interesting.
A lot of that going on.
Yeah, there's a lot going on. A lot of that going on with the people we interview here.
Yeah.
Excuse me. But so finish college, then go off to boot camp.
Correct. Yeah.
So when you went to college, did you already have it in your mind that you were going to go to Buds after?
Yes.
You did?
Yes.
So you knew that was coming.
Yes. Yeah, I always knew Buds was coming.
Did we had Jack Carr on a few episodes ago, and
Good guy. Good book, by the way, if you haven't read that yet.
Yeah, Jack and Evan kind of got into the weeds about training that they did in college to prepare for Evan's Q course and Jack and Buds, and Jack Carr would wake up every morning and punch a board really hard, and they did all these little what they thought at the time were legit training things, getting them ready. So did you do any of that stuff? Did you train for Buds, while you're in college, or have that mindset?
So I did, and I did train for Buds when I was in college. But I'll be honest, the training I did was probably not the best training in the world for Buds. It was maybe what I thought I needed to do in my mind, but honestly, it really was not the best.
Holding your breath in the dorm room.
Yeah, just But that's all the stuff I did as a little kid. So you have to keep in mind, Charlie Sheen was my hero. So,
understandable.
He inspired me to be the man I am today. Still
It's
does.
such a great movie.
Fingerless
People make
gloves.
fun of it, man, but that's a great movie.
I had fingerless gloves because of Charlie Sheen.
Exactly, So he inspired a generation of warfighters. Who would have thought,
That's hilarious.
But
Look at him now.
I know.
Look at Charlie now.
Tiger blood.
I mean, so I'm a little kid jumping off of bridges and holding my breath underwater, and I got certified for scuba diving when I was 12.
Right.
So I'm doing all these things that were really pushing me in that direction. So the water aspect of things was probably one of the easiest parts of the SEAL training for me, but the actual physical training part of it, yes, I was pushing myself, and so I was no stranger to pushing myself. But the specific training that I was doing is probably not the best, geared for Buds.
So, like a lot of bench press, I bet.
Exactly. A lot of bench press, a lot of curls. Some squats once in a while.
The biceps, the most useless muscle in the human body. It serves absolutely no purpose.
Well, I looked at all the
Good for
pictures.
the
And I just
bar.
saw seals were just carved out
Out of steel,
marble. So
yeah.
I was like, well, that's what I have to look like to be a seal. So as long as I look like that, I should be good to go.
So, finish college, roll up to Buds.
So finish college, enlist in the Navy, and ship off to boot camp. And that was probably my first, indication of like, is this something I really want to be doing here? Because here I am learning how to fold underwear. And I'm like, when do SEALs have to know how to fold underwear? I didn't come to the military to learn how to fold underwear.
I didn't even think SEALs wore underwear. Like, what is this about?
We don't. I'm glad you noticed.
Thanks. So, I want to talk a little bit about Buds because I always find it interesting to talk to you guys, different perspectives. What was the hardest part for you?
Hardest part of Buds. So
In the we can break down into phases.
Okay.
So, what was the hardest part of first phase?
waking up.
Really?
Yes. So I knew as long as I woke up and showed up, I'd make it through the day.
And waking up was the hard part.
Yes. So as long as there wasn't a bell right by my bed, I'm going to make it through the day.
They let y'all sleep in Buds?
Yeah, sometimes.
I didn't think. I literally thought it was 2 years no sleep, man. Like, so waking up was the hardest part. What
Yes.
was the easiest? What came easiest for you?
I would say I had a advantage during second phase, during dive phase. Mm-hmm. I did have some advantages there with just all the different water training and dive training that I already kind of had going into it. So I definitely felt over prepared for that in relation to.
That's really interesting to hear. Just being an Army guy, combat dive qualification in Special Forces, arguably the hardest school in the Army, and to hear a guy say, "Oh, the water part was the easiest," it just blows my mind because SF dude's like, "Nope, no, nope, egg beaters, no, thank you."
Do people have problems with dive phase?
Oh, absolutely. So I think some of the guys that would have been great operators never made it through dive phase.
Really?
Yeah.
Why is that?
It's just, one of those, gates that you have to get through. One, you have to be good with procedures with lack of oxygen and not panicking.
That's huge. That's the biggest part of dive school.
Okay, so
in
when I'm
any
thinking
military.
of dive component, I'm thinking of tanks and masks and.
So there's that, but that's like the administrative easy part. We're talking like what happens when you get hit with a 250-pound dude bouncing you off the bottom of a pool, wrapping your regulator around your neck, ripping your mask off, twirling you around in the water, and now you have to go through an exact procedure on how to fix that problem.
I missed that day when I got PADI certified when I was 15. They don't do that in the commercial world.
No. Well, maybe one of the more advanced courses. Maybe.
Right. Underwater ass whipping. So the dive phase, like that's swim hits and pool hits and holding your breath, being cold and miserable, and okay. So it's not the actual physical act of diving with tanks and stuff that's hard. It's all the other stuff.
Exactly. I mean, yes, is it physical to actually dive into, kick underwater to hit a target? Yes, it is, but that's not the hard part. The part that actually gets people dropped is not being able to follow procedures and panicking.
From no oxygen.
Yes.
Got it. And then phase 3, easy, hard, complicated,
So
exciting.
it was hard. It was hard. Don't get me wrong. I mean, I'll be honest. I think third phase was, in some components, harder than first phase. The difference is I felt like I was finally being a team guy at that point. You're learning explosives, you're learning firearms, you're learning basic fire and movement. You actually feel like you're doing the job you wanted to do. You actually finally feel like you're getting a taste.
Get to do the cool stuff.
Exactly. So it is harder, but it's almost more motivating in a sense.
Yeah.
When you're just like holding a paddle and running around and getting your shit kicked in, it's like you still don't see the light at the end of the tunnel yet. There is no light at the end of the tunnel.
Maybe there's more purpose. It comes to the surface.
That's what I was gonna say.
There's
yeah.
a good word for it. Yeah. It feels like there's more purpose.
What was it like? So you guys don't fire weapons in Navy boot camp, do you?
I didn't. I think once in a while some classes do, but most of the time I get like these like laser weapons,
So what was it?
They get like these
tried so hard not to laugh.
They get
right
like
now.
laser guns.
So what was it like? Like, did you have any experience or exposure to firearms as a child?
So I did, but I wasn't really a huge avid shooter. I was a Boy Scout. I did like, hunter safety course, that kind of stuff. But I by no means was like a kid that was shooting every weekend. I had some
Right.
basic firearm safety and had some basic knowledge, but I was not an avid shooter.
So does the firearm, like when guys like pick up guns, like are some of them just like fish out of water? Like, I don't know what this is or how this works.
So there's a couple things I see. So one, I see some people they've never even held a gun before, and now they're going to be a SEAL. So, and then I also see the kids that grew up shooting every single day, and they're just like really comfortable around firearms. Sometimes they have a harder problem than the other kids because they learn how to shoot the way their uncle taught them.
It's not a blank canvas.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yep.
I'm sure you saw the
Unlearning
same
bad
shit.
techniques and
Yeah.
learning proper techniques.
Yes. Yep.
That's interesting. So we shoot a lot of skeet at Black Rifle, and I've shot thousands of ducks and quail and doves out of the sky in my life, thousands of them.
Mm-hmm.
And I shoot a very certain way when I'm shooting waterfowl. I basically lead and have them fly into my shot pattern, which is not how you're supposed to shoot skeet at all. Not at all. That's not how it works. So that actually does make sense because I go out like a skeet range and like I shoot differently than everyone. I mean, I shoot as well, if not better than most people out there. But it's funny, like, unlearning bad habits that worked for you in the past but don't work in the current way you're being taught to do things. Well, it works that way, but that's not how we want you to do it. Do you have any exposure with guys like, getting exposure to guns and stuff like that had never shot before? And
You don't see that as much in the Army. I mean, are you talking about like once I got into the Q course?
yeah.
No, not really, because everybody has basic rifle marksmanship and basic training in the Army. Now, there's definitely dudes that shoot better and are more comfortable with it. I'll tell you, my first experience with reactive shooting was in the Q course, doing up-down drills with an M4, and I was terrible at it. Terrible. I was so uncomfortable.
What are up-down drills?
Guns down, guns up, guns down, up-down drills.
Okay.
Yeah. So ready up, pop off two, put it down, safe,
Got
put
it.
it back down. Yeah. And it moving, shooting, things like that. I was just really uncomfortable with it. I got better.
Well,
Yeah.
obviously.
but man, I looked like a fish out of water when I was
Really?
first doing it. Yeah. I looked like a white guy dancing.
Really?
Yeah. It was bad. It was awkward. Yeah.
Didn't think you were going to make it.
Well, I was concentrating so hard on each individual movement that I don't think the thought popped into my head, oh man, am I going to make it?
Right.
Yeah.
You were just hyper-focused on what you're doing.
Yeah. And then, I'd get slapped in the back of the head every once in a while.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
I'll
that's
do better.
That's fun.
So third phase rolls around, and then you're done with that, and you get your trident.
So after Buds, the pipeline for SEAL now, I think for about the past 10 years or so, is after Buds you go to SQT, which is about another 6 months of training there. And it stands for SEAL Qualification Training. So that's the point where you're actually tactically doing all the stuff that you need to know to be able to be effective as a new guy in a SEAL platoon. So you're learning, everything from, in our pipeline we had, jump school and free fall school, cold weather warfare school, CQC, land warfare, MAROPS, basic communications and first aid, all this stuff, the Mach 1 motto, basic level of operator
Right.
that you need to know.
And then you went to SEAL Team 5?
Yes.
Is it true that the teams are harder than Buds?
That the team, so
As a new guy?
yeah, so there's a saying we kind of have where, it never ends in the sense that, I remember being in Buds actually, and I was doing probably some kind of beatdown session was going on, and I saw these two guys jumping. They were running from the SEAL compound over the berm into the water, getting wet and sandy, and they're like in a uniform, and they have like a trident on. I'm like, what is going on here? These guys are getting wet and sandy, and they're SEALs. And they remember they looked at me, and they're like, it never ends. And then they just ran back, and I was like, wow. So
This never stops.
never stops.
It's like that scene in Get Out. The guy leans in. He's like, "Get out, get out!"
Oh yeah, dude, just get out now while you can. So SEAL Team 5, and then how long until your first deployment?
Let's see. So the way it typically kind of works is you roll to a team. You usually have about a year and a half, depending on when you get into the team, a year to a year and a half of training before you deploy for about 6 months. And during like the first 6 months, you have like this personal development period where it's, you're going to these personal schools where, you might be going to like breacher school, maybe you're going to sniper school. 18 Delta is a different story because we send guys to 18 Delta first before they even roll to the team.
Yeah.
It's such a long school.
Yep, I was with him. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's funny because like I got back from my first deployment and I was like no longer like the new guy anymore. And I have buddies of mine that I went to buds with just getting back to 18 Delta, and they're like, "Hey, new guy."
Yep.
But it's like they were like in school, getting their scholastic brain pushed in for the last year and a half,
Right.
And they finally roll into a SEAL team. I almost feel bad.
So how many I guess where I'm trying to go with this now is like, when did you get exposed to dogs?
I would say, in my first platoon, in training, we got to see, dogs in training, like all these amazing things they were able to do. And that when I came into the teams, I never even knew being a dog handler was an option. It wasn't like they have that as like, your dream sheet was like, what do you want to do? You want to be a preacher? You want to be a JTAC? You want to be a sniper? Like what kind of schools do you want to do? Do you want to be like a secret squirrel guy going to some secret squirrel like schools or something? And, no one ever laid out a dog handler as a future career path in the SEAL teams. It was literally just seeing it in action, seeing a handler show up and finding IEDs that we would have actually stepped on.
Right.
And showing us the capabilities. I was like, wow, that is pretty badass. And
When was that? About what time frame?
I think that was probably about 2009.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So, and for the first little bit of the SEAL teams, like, if I know some SEAL dog history, like where technically we had SEALs in Vietnam.
Yeah.
And with dogs, and it's not really a talked about thing because no one really even talked about SEALs, back then. But for the first little bit of having the dog program kind of reemerge and get reestablished for the War on Terror, it was a sensitive topic. Like we didn't really openly talk about it to the public. So my first exposure was just literally seeing it. After that, I just kind of had in the back of my mind, I was like, wow, if I ever have the opportunity to actually be able to do this, I'd love to do that.
What did you want to do? Be a sniper or?
I want to be a sniper through and through, and because pretty much every Navy SEAL movie, the sniper has the coolest lines. He's always the coolest dude.
Vaporized hostiles. Isn't that what he said?
Yeah.
Saving Private Ryan, guy in the bell tower.
Yeah, the sniper's always the coolest dude. He's
so. And then when was the first time you saw dogs in action?
Yeah, probably not until about 2009.
Yeah.
And that like before that, for the time before that, I never even knew they were even an option. Like even there was people in the SEAL teams that were like operators for 10 years and they didn't even know the dog teams were a thing. It just wasn't a talked about thing. And it was really small for a while. Like when we started, we only had a couple dogs. That was just the way it was.
What was the appeal with the dogs?
So one, dogs are just badass in general. But two, I didn't know how capable that you could even make a dog. Like these dogs were finding IDs, biting the shit out of bad guys, tracking people down and hunting them like animals. It was awesome. And then two, I mean, you get to go to war with like your best friend, it's awesome.
Yeah. A buddy of mine, Chris Irwin, I remember this when Chris and I started working together, probably 2013. Chris was in Gold Squad, and I was kind of messing with him, like, Mr. Secret guy. And I just remember coming across a photo of a dog, fully, I guess, kitted out with goggles and stuff. And I sent him that photo, and I was like, dude, do you ever see this? And he goes, man, no matter what we were doing, no matter where we were going, no matter how gnarly a mission was going to be, like in a helicopter or plane or whatever. And he said, anytime I looked over and saw a dog with goggles on, I would laugh. And he said it would like kind of make him chuckle and just be like, man, that dog's got goggles on. Like here we are about to go jump into go hit some target, man, and I've got a dog with goggles on in a plane next to me. So that always kind of resonated with me. I am fascinated by some of the things we talked about last night. Hopefully I can remember them all. But, like, what's, like, the craziest thing you've ever seen a dog do that you're allowed to talk about? I mean, if there's something you can't mention, don't. But,
You know, it depends on what level, in the sense, we've had dogs, jump off, 3-4 story buildings, the amount of, just bites these dogs have gotten. But I would say one of the craziest things that I saw happen with my personal dog was how incredible their noses are. And to the degree of, like, yes, in training, we always, we're finding IDs, we're finding, aids and hidden things. But when my dog caught wind of a cachet that we were looking for, and he caught that scent, maybe about a mile away almost, and tracked in on that, it was probably one of the most amazing things I've ever seen, in the sense of, like, I didn't even think that was physically possible, but when you know your dog's body language that well, you trust that that you're like, okay, he is on something. And my mindset was, we knew we were looking for a cachet.
it was a big one.
It was really...
Are you allowed to say how big it is?
Yeah, it was 13,000 pounds.
Is that a big one?
That's big.
Yeah.
Yeah, you said the dog picked up on it from a mile away, and he started kind of working back and forth and back and forth. But you made a comment about the cachet was so big that it was, I think maybe, I don't know if you said sensory overload for him when he got closer to it or something?
So, like, in the training world, it's something we call the absolute threshold, where, if a dog, like, took a shit here in the room, we'd be like, wow, I smell shit, and I think it's coming from over there. Yeah, it is. Matter of fact, it is. It's coming from that direction. It's right there. Oh, my God, there it is,
Right.
But if someone dropped off 300 pounds of shit into this room, there's no way you'd be able to tell where it's coming from.
Right.
It would be overwhelming. Mm-hmm. It would just be, packed full of, poop particles floating in the air. We wouldn't be able to tell where it's coming from. So when a dog is tracking, it does, like, this little sidewinder missile pattern. And the closer it gets to the source, the tighter that sidewinder pattern gets. And when he was tracking in on that, he got so tight and then just lost it and was just kind of had his nose up in the air, just kind of sniffing the air, and would lose the scent. We did that twice. And then I was like, all right, John, the dog did a great job. Time to use the human brain. And I was like, okay, wind coming from this direction. Cool. All right, let's go upwind 50 feet. Sure enough, hole in the ground, covered up with, like, a bush that didn't even have any leaves on it. It wasn't even, like, that cleverly hidden. But in that hole, once you got into that hole, it was a huge, like, cavern, just packed full of explosives.
Oh, wow.
And we had, like, a person there with us that kind of knew there was a cache in that location already. So we knew we were looking for a cache, but we had no idea it was going to be that large.
That's awesome. Have you ever seen a person escape from a dog?
No, I haven't. I'm not going to say it can't happen, because it can. But none of the dogs that we've ever sent on anyone ever got away. We're usually cheating. We usually have, like, ISR, a dog, maybe a sniper Overwatch. Like, they're usually in a pretty disadvantaged, position. You know?
Some of like the guys in the Drinking Bros Network. I think Scott. He's a sheriff's deputy in L.A. and flies the helicopters and stuff. And I asked him that. I was like, hey man, you ever seen, like? Well, I was like, what's your favorite thing? He's like, watching from the air a dog get sent in. He's like, it is unbelievable. I was like, you ever seen someone escape from a dog? He goes, absolutely not. And I was like, well, what would you do if it happened? He was like, well, they might be able to get away from a dog conceivably. He's like, they're not running. He's like, they're not running a helicopter, not on foot.
Yeah.
But no, he said that's the coolest thing is watching them from the air. Have you had any experience with dogs that you're allowed to talk about?
Well, yeah. I mean, I'm not a canine handler. Never have been. I love my own dog, and that's about it.
But you've seen him work, though, right?
Yeah.
Impressive?
Yeah. For missiles. Watching somebody fast rope with a dog that still blows my mind. I'm not good on a rope as it is. I mean, I'm a 240 pound weight, so doing the self arrest and everything else.
Yeah,
it's enough to control myself. I just can't imagine having to control a dog below me while I'm doing that. Or a buddy of mine in 275, we'd go out. We taught at University of Washington together, and we'd bring his dog out when we were doing rappel days, and
That's
on the
awesome.
wall and whatnot. Yeah,
So
it's pretty
you've
cool.
jumped with dogs too, right?
Correct. Yep.
What is that experience like?
So you mean actually like doing free fall with a dog?
Or are you just jumping out of a plane with a dog?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So jumping out of an airplane with a dog. So to be honest, it's not a lot on the dog. It's mostly on you.
Right.
Because you're the one flying, so you got to, just be able to, maintain a good, good arch and be able to counter with whatever your dog. It's basically kind of like having a backpack on, shaped like a dog. And the dog doesn't really have to do a whole lot. He's just kind of there for the ride. And the whole philosophy of training is like by that point, that dog should trust you enough to know that nothing bad is ever going to happen when he's with you. That you guys have been through so much in training that he trusts you. That if he's going to get strapped to you and jump out of an airplane, that he can trust that you've got this situation covered. Inevitably, we do muzzle our dogs because I don't think, jumping from, 13,000 feet is a good time to figure out if your dog, is going to bite you or not.
Right.
So we always do muzzle them for that, just in case.
Right. Like civilian dogs, they know when they're going to go out for a WALK. You can see them, they get antsy and, or you have a ball and they want you to throw it. Like, do these dogs know when it's time to go to work?
Absolutely, yeah.
They get pumped up and
Yes.
they're ready to go.
Yes.
And would you say that they like what they do?
Oh, they love what they do. So the happiest dogs that I've, ever known are dogs at a working kennel, at a good working kennel, in that, they get to hang out with their master / human and get to go to work and get to do what they were bred and born to do, So for them, it's like the happiest time of their life.
So you mentioned bred and born to do that. So going back to duck hunting, retrievers, genetically, there's a little bit of you have to train a good bird dog, okay? But throw the ball in the water, they're going to get it. Like, how much of what these dogs do is genetic?
A lot. A lot of it is genetic in that, yes, we could teach a dog to do a lot of the same things that seal dogs do. The problem is they don't have the intangible traits that they just need to inherently have.
Just polish the skills?
Yes, they need to have they have to have the will. They have to have the will to want to go into and actually fight. They got to have the drive to want to actually go to work. So really what's happening is you have to breed these dogs and train them as puppies to give them the motivation to even want to do this. Because I could train your dog to maybe bite a sleeve and, bite something, but how badly does he really want to do that?
Right.
You know what I mean?
So that brings me to the next thing I want to talk about. Talked about buds. Talked a little bit about the Q course. Selection process. Is it the same with dogs?
So it's not the same in the sense of, traditionally, for the SEAL selection is, you get a bunch of qualified candidates that, meet the physical and mental aptitude to actually show up and put them through hell to get a core motivated group of people and then start teaching them, all the skills. And if they cannot keep up with learning the skills, they end up falling out. That's, buds and SQT in a nutshell. With dogs, it's really about there is a selection process, but also there's like the selection process happens before the selection process even starts.
Okay.
Meaning that all these dogs that we're selecting were already selected. They were selected to be working dogs, number one. Then they were some of the best candidates to be a working dog in the world already.
Legitimately born to be a working dog.
Yes, they were born to be a working dog.
Right.
And then they were probably the best dog in their litter, to even show up. And this is just, times this by thousands in the sense of like thousands of working dog candidates that are out there. They take all the best ones and they, put them into a pool of, of dogs that are pretty much available for sale overseas. And when special operations teams go over there to purchase dogs, they're looking at hundreds and hundreds of dogs. And
Let me ask this. How old are those dogs when they're looking at them at this point?
Could be anywhere between a year to 2 years old.
Okay.
Yeah, maybe, a little older than that, depending if it's like a really, really good dog.
And how much training have those dogs had up to that point?
So usually they're called green dogs, and they're called green dogs because they haven't been taught the skills yet. So they haven't been taught the skills of everything they need to do, but there has been training in them since they were puppies, and that there had to have been training to keep that drive and keep building that motivation and building that drive. that's happened before you even see them. So when you're testing these dogs, you're testing their genetics, but you're also testing everything that's been put into this dog up until this point. And the reason why we do it this way, and people inevitably always talk about puppy breeding programs and things like that. There's a reason why we don't do that. It'd be like if I went to an elementary school and I was like, "Hey kids, I have to pick out who's going to be an NFL player." Okay, so what do? You go to the toughest, biggest, most athletic first grader. Okay, good luck with that. Do you think he'll still have that same drive and motivation and even physical aptitude when he's 18 to 20 years old? So that's why we just cut straight to like a young adolescent dog that's like, I kind of call them high school, college age dogs. And we put them through like the SEAL combine, and we put them through a series of tests. We make our best judgments on if they're going to be good enough for the program, and then ship them in. And then inevitably we do have, a washout rate of dogs at the SEAL team.
What that's what I was going to ask. What is that?
So it can vary. I've seen it anywhere from like 30% to 50% of the dogs that show up might get washed out. And don't get me wrong, like they don't get washed out and get dropped off at a shelter. These dogs get washed out and they go to like the FBI. They get washed out and go to like a sheriff's department. They get washed out.
I was going to say they wash out and they go to special boat teams.
Yeah, you know what I mean? Like they'll go somewhere,
I like that one. That was a good one. I know what that meant.
They definitely go somewhere. We'll put it that way.
But they're not like winding up as like house pets or like
exactly because they are good dogs. They were good enough to get there. That means that they're good enough to go somewhere.
Right.
So,
are there different levels of dogs? So, like let's say for example, you have Delta and you have SF. Mm-hmm. Are the dogs at the SF guys or like SEAL Team 5 versus SEAL Team 6? Are the dogs at like your third group, are they the same caliber of dogs that are at Delta, or like do those guys have the pick
Are there
of the
tier
pick?
1 dogs and are there tier 2 dogs?
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
I would say no, only because I've been around to different programs and things like that, and I've obviously there's so many things that tier 1 units are doing that are really good, and we learn from them. But their dog programs sometimes I've even seen lacking in the sense of other programs.
Right.
So it's really, there's no such thing as like a tier 1 dog and a tier 2 dog, but I will say the caliber of handlers can be different where you go. The caliber of operators could be different depending on which program you go.
And the mission can be different. Yeah.
The mission can be different. The caliber of trainers that are working to build those dogs up at these different programs can be different. So, it wouldn't surprise me to see, a vanilla team dog better than a damn neck team dog.
Okay.
But like I said, different dogs for different jobs. So, maybe a dog at a different team might be better for what they're doing and what their mission set is, comparatively to what a different unit is doing.
Got it. And right, let's say you get a dog that makes it through the process. This dog, we want this dog. What percent of the outcome or success of that dog, like what percent would you attribute to genetics versus what percent to the handler? So like in a rodeo, when a guy rides a bull, 50 points come from the rider, how he rides it, and 50 points, potential points come from the bull.
Okay.
So like what percent is the trainer and what percent is the dog? Like can you have like a C grade trainer and an A plus dog, or can an A plus trainer make a C plus dog an A dog?
Yes. So I've seen it go a lot of different ways, and that sometimes a really good trainer can build a dog up that maybe had a couple different issues and he works those issues through. I mean, matter of fact, my dog, Ito, he was probably at risk of being flushed from the program in the beginning. When they actually gave him to me, they said, "John, we think he's got about 50% chance of making it through the program. We're not too sure on him. He's really young. He's under a year old. He's one of the youngest dogs we ever put in the program, but we're out of dogs, and you have to go to the handler course in like 3 days. So like this is the dog you got. And don't worry, if it doesn't work out, we'll give you another dog, But that was the attitude they had with my first dog,
That is the perfect foundation for a buddy cop movie.
Yeah.
It really is. Yeah. We need to pitch that to Hollywood. Dave, edit that out so no one steals Tears. Great idea. So you decide you want to work with dogs, all right? And what was the trainer like, hey, this is what I want to do, and then you go to the dog handler program. Mm-hmm. What was that like?
So at Team 5, I was already kind of on a list of guys that were interested in doing the dog program because I already tried to go. And they were like, no, we can't let you go. They already have enough guys there. You're a fire team leader here, blah, 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 blah. And I was like, all right, cool. I mean, like, because I'll be honest, I didn't have like all my heart was set on being a dog handler. I didn't grow up reading books as a 5-year-old kid wanting to be a Navy SEAL dog handler. You know, I wanted to just be a Navy SEAL, you know,
Right.
so... but I was interested in doing it. If I had the chance, I wanted to do it. But sure enough, some time goes by, and I get like, you know, pretty much invited up to the office, and they're like, John, how badly do you want to be a dog handler? And I was like, that would be really cool. They're like, well, do you want to do it? And I was like, yeah. They're like, all right, well, a new directive just came out. They want to expand the dog teams and make them bigger, and they need guys right now. And I was like, okay, well, how long do I have to decide? They're like, about 5 minutes, because we need to put a name in right now. And if you don't do it, we're going to the next guy on the list. So I pretty much had to take like this like leap of faith,
Right.
you know? And it wasn't like I could go. Most guys that ever got involved in the dog teams prior to that, it was kind of like they found out about it, and you go to the dog teams, kind of like say hi to the guys, like, oh, can I see what you guys do here, and kind of hang out and maybe take
Some courtship.
Yeah, exactly. And it's for both ends, and I actually do like that because one, you have to see if this is something you really want to do, because it's completely different than anything else in the teams. But the style I kind of went was just a leap of faith, and the next day I was at the dog teams, and they were like, all right, well, welcome to the dog teams. Put this bite suit on, and we're gonna let you get bit by every single dog in the kennel.
And what was that like?
Blood in, blood out.
It was like, so the first time you ever take a bite off of a serious working dog, one of two things go through your mind. It's either like, this fucking sucks, I don't want to do this again, or holy freaking awesome, that was cool. You know,
I remember thinking, oh man, I hope this suit is thick enough. That's what I remember thinking.
But I see people like, all right, here, they put on a suit and they take off running, and like my thought is like, what if he grabs you by the neck?
yeah. So I've seen that happen before. I'm not saying it doesn't ever happen, because it can. But the foundational training in these dogs, since they're puppies, like they are conditioned to target certain areas of the body. You know, so that they're not typically trained to grab people by the neck. They're generally going for the arm to use the momentum and torque them down to the ground. Usually,
Can you direct a dog to bite a specific area, or
so
mean, like,
yes, you can.
Chopper, sick balls.
Yeah, so you can. There's something in like, this is getting more into like protection sports and things like that, where they like to teach dogs to target specific body parts. We didn't get into doing that because we're not teaching dog martial arts. We're teaching warriors,
Right.
you know, in the sense, like, if you have your foot and that's the only thing you have dangling out, that dog's going to go for the foot. Now, not to say that we didn't have guys that were hiding that just had their faces exposed, and dogs would drag them out by their faces.
Wow.
You know, and it does happen. But it's more, we just teach the dogs to bite whatever they have access to. And if they have the choice, then it's like, oh, sweet, dealer's choice. And
Right.
they grab where they're comfortable.
okay, so they're letting all the dogs chase you down and bite you.
Yeah, and you know, it was, you know, a hot, you know, August afternoon or something. It gets pretty warm inside those bite suits, and after a few hours of that, you know, I was like, you know, remember what I said about, you know, holy crap, this is terrifying, and holy
Right.
crap, this is cool. I probably had a little bit of both,
Right.
but at the end of the day, I was just like, this is amazing. This is pretty cool. I can't wait to get paired up with my dog. You know.
So how long in until you got paired up with your dog?
So I was there for a few months, probably maybe about 2 or 3 months. And I was working with dogs, and I was handling dogs, and just kind of like, and I think I was actually good. I think it's good to do that before you actually do get paired up with the dog, because you need to learn the craft. It's really like, it's kind of like an apprenticeship more than it really is like, you know, a skill. You really have to develop it through reps and repetitions. And, you know, there is a handler course we go to. It's, you know, a few months long. But even after the handler course, there's so much more development that goes into it. You really have to just know your dog through and through, and that just comes with time and reps, you know.
Yeah. And then what was it like getting your dog?
So kind of going back to what I said in the sense of, we had the handler course coming up. Some dogs that they thought that I was going to get paired up with, they ended up flushing from the program. And so Ito was like the last dog in the kennel left. And he was this small. Like, I mean, he was big and gawky. Like, he looked like Scooby-Doo. And he was like really skinny, had big paws because he was just a skinny looking puppy. His balls hadn't even dropped yet. So that tells you how young he was. And they're like, well, it's the only dog in the kennel, and the handler course starts in 3 days. So you're going to have to fly across the country to go attend this handler course. And they almost were like apologizing to me because they knew that like I was the next guy in line to get the choice of the next dogs. But they thought that I was already going to get paired up with this one dog. So they gave out all the other dogs. And then they flushed my dog out that they thought they were going to be pairing me up with. And then I was just kind of left with them. But the one thing I knew about that dog is I was watching him in training, and I was really, taking part in the imprinting of him and teaching him, his first few odors, was what an incredible nose he had.
Right.
He had an incredible nose, and later on, this is a quote that I'll steal from a trainer that told me, months and months and months later, was that he was like, John, I've been working dogs for over 25 years, and this is the best nose I've ever seen on a dog, ever.
And that's important.
Probably the most important, because at the end of the day, yes, dogs can bite, and it's pretty cool. But I carry a rifle with me, and I kind of know how to use it. So if I need to take a threat out, I can do it. I don't, need my dog to kill anybody. I just need to find an IED that I can't see.
You got the Rudy of dogs.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, we got the foundation for we can do a screenplay right after this.
We're going to do that.
Yeah. Yeah. So
I just wanted to bring up the genetics of your dog. He had that really long nose that was unusual. Mm-hmm. It's almost like if you look at a lot of the Olympic athletes, the swimmers, almost all of them have some kind of a physical, quote unquote, deformity that makes them swim faster than everybody else. I think that extra genetics and that nose structure is really what put him over the top.
Yeah, like if you look at Michael Phelps, huge feet, long torso, long arms, massive hands. Mm-hmm. Yeah, they all have a specific build.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Ito he had a nose that almost made him look like a Great Dane almost, with just how long his snout was. And there's something called facillary glands, and this is all theory because there really isn't enough like research and science going into like dog scent stuff. There's just not enough money of research put into it. But the theory is, and it makes sense, that the longer the nose, the more facillary glands they have, the better nose they have for detection, which is why bloodhounds are notorious for being good at detection because they have those long ass noses. And Ito's nose was, by far just almost goofily, if that's a real word, longer than the rest of the Mal's and Dutch Shepherds that we had.
So how long did you work with Ito before you guys went across the ocean?
I worked with him for about a year before we ever deployed.
And then you had deployed a couple times prior to this, right?
Mm-hmm. Correct.
Okay.
This is like, first time with the dog at least.
Right. So you get through the training course. Like, how long were those days? How brutal was it?
So the handler course was, it's like going to a school, where it's, long days, working your dog, things like that. But really, when I showed up there, my dog didn't even know how to sit yet. So, and meanwhile, some other handlers that are going through this course, they have dogs that have already been overseas.
Oh, wow.
So as long as they kind of like, not taking anything away from those handlers, because a lot of those guys are great guys that did awesome, successful things overseas. But the handler course for them may have been just like staying out of their dog's way. And then they're like, okay, any critique points for that run? Like, no, good job. You found the ID. Good job. Where me, it's like, I'm like tripping over my leash. I'm looking like a bag full of smashed up assholes, essentially. Like if you looked at me like the first week, you'd be like, what the hell is wrong with this guy and this dog? Like we were the most jacked up ones there,
Right.
So I looked at that as like, I need to spend more time with my dog doing stuff. So pretty much every night after school, I was going back to the basics, like sit, stay, down, using all my, Dutch commands and whatnot, but teaching all the basics of everything that this dog needs to know. That way, when we're on target doing anything, we can really just be in the moment in doing that rather than having to, fix things, on the spot, because it's hard to go, and do obedience around gunfire and finding IEDs if you have a dog that doesn't even know how to sit and lay down and stay.
Obedience during gunfire. What are you doing? I'm trying to teach him how to shake. They're shooting at us. So what was it like you finished the course. What was it like deploying with your own dog the first time? Like, you guys go out and did your job and
it was awesome.
Got in fights and whatever.
Yeah, I mean, it was awesome in the sense of like it's like being on a football team and practicing, doing double sessions for the entire summer, and then finally getting a chance to actually play in a game.
So how was it different? You were a fire team leader before that, and now it's you and your dog, right? How was that dynamic different?
So imagine going and doing. Imagine operating. It's like, oh wow, I can.
Yeah.
But imagine doing it with a toddler strapped to your waist.
Yeah.
Because essentially it's kind of what you have. Now, yes, the toddler has some sharp teeth and can take care of himself in certain situations and stuff, but really, they're completely dependent on your direction.
Yeah.
So, in all honesty, you have to be a good operator, and it's a reason why we don't send new guys to be dog handlers, because you have to be a solid operator already and know your craft before you can strap this toddler to your waist and go be an operator.
So it's interesting you say the toddler thing, and I want to bring it back to your kind of transformation into from just a SEAL to a SEAL canine handler. Before I was SF, I trained horses for the Army, and I learned a lot about being a parent through working with horses. I don't know if my kids appreciate that or not, but there's a lot of the training stuff, a lot of repetition, and a lot of demeanor and whatnot. If you just get mad at a horse, it's just going to run away. And hopefully they don't figure out that they're bigger than you at some point, right? But I learned a lot about myself and a lot about how I need to control my own demeanor, just kind of introspectively around other people. And I learned things about me through training horses. Did you have anything like that when you were becoming a canine handler?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great perspective. And absolutely, I think having an animal background like that, because you can't explain anything to a horse or a dog.
Right.
You can't explain something, and you can't have conversations, and getting mad at them doesn't help the problem.
Mm-hmm.
So at the end of the day, if you kind of have the mentality of it's never their fault, it's either your fault for not training them enough, or or maybe not enough, but the right way. You have to be able to go back to yourself and be like critical, and just be a critical thinker and be a problem solver to fix these training issues and things like that. So yes, I think that working with dogs at the SEAL teams made me more self-aware.
Yeah.
Really did.
Yeah.
What?
I saw that look on Baker's face like, oh.
Horses?
I did, yeah.
For the Army?
For the Army.
In what century?
I spent the first part of my my career, the first 4.5 years in the first Cav, and I was in the horse cavalry detachment. It was a ceremonial unit, but we went around the country doing parades and rodeos. And
I'm like running through my head. I was like, I saw the movie Horse Soldiers, and those.
So there are pictures of me riding in Afghanistan in the early days.
Oh, really?
Yeah. In fact, I won a Buzkashi match once. For everybody that doesn't know what Buzkashi is,
this is insane.
It's
a goat head.
Yeah. It's like playing polo, except you got to pick the ball up, and that ball is a headless calf that's been soaking in formaldehyde all week.
Yeah, John, thanks for stopping by. Now we're going to talk about really interesting stuff over here.
So that's the same game. Didn't John Rambo play that?
Yep. John Rambo won.
It's like a game. This is what all Green Berets play, right?
Yeah. Well, yes, sure. Yeah. The difference is it's actually cold up in the northern plains there outside Mazar Sharif, and I was wearing a shirt and a fleece the entire time.
You won.
I did. I won a match.
Buzkashi match?
I won a Buzkashi match. Thing about Buzkashi though, it's an individual sport with alliances. So there were definitely dudes in old Russian tank helmets that were blocking for me and whatnot. And it was a Robin Sage type moment. I don't want to detract from what you got going on here, but when I won, when the warlord came over and handed me the equivalent of like 100 US cash, I was like, uh-oh, what do I do now? So I just looked at one of the dudes that was on a horse next to me that I knew had blocked for me a little bit. I just handed him the wad of cash, and he happily took it and tucked it away in his man jams.
Well, you're not so interesting anymore, are you, John?
All right, guys, I'm going to go find
a Buzkashi match here in Vegas.
I'm going to go find a polo team to join and ask them if we could just use a headless, what is that, the head of a calf?
It's either a goat or a calf.
Goat, yeah. All right, cool.
Yeah.
So, when you were out, do you feel safer with a dog? Like when you would go out on ops and whatnot?
Yes.
Did the team feel safer?
Yes, absolutely. Because, really, the one thing that any operator will tell you is, yes, you can get shot. Yes, there's firefights and things like that. But, like, if you go deep into, like, the back of the brain of what you're truly kind of, afraid of is stepping in an IED. You can't... You can do everything you can, but, like, even if you do everything you can, what if they made one that was really well placed and just set up just the right way, and then now you have no legs and you're peeing in a bag for the rest of your life?
Yeah, that's got to be like, I don't know how guys deal with that. I mean, just
really tense glutes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Kegel exercises.
Right.
Shit's real tight.
Yeah.
I mean, they issued us, like, I'm sure you guys got these too, like these like Kevlar underwear and things like that. And I think it was more like psychological. They give us these Kevlar underwear. They're like, oh, don't worry. You have these Kevlar. The rest of you will be gone, but your balls will remain intact.
Did you ever get the moon boots? Did the like? It looks like you're walking on these like Lego stilts.
No.
Oh man, they're ridiculous.
That's hilarious. So, over there working with dogs, and then when did you kind of decide I've done my time? And then when did you start thinking about, I want to start your business? Like when did that seed get planted, and when did that start? Like, when did you really start thinking about that?
So when I first got out of the teams, being a dog trainer was not at the forefront of my brain. It was just something I was doing to keep myself occupied. And it's why you'll see a lot of operators that get out and they keep doing something as a hobby just to keep their edge, to keep, so they don't drop their shield, so to speak. Mm-hmm. So, I was still doing dog training, and I just thoroughly enjoyed helping people. And that, like, I just knew people that had issues with their dog. And because I spent so much time training dogs, I knew that I had, like, an affinity for wanting to do it. So I just continued doing it, and I continued wanting to help people. Eventually, I just started doing, like, free dog training in the park. I literally, how I first started Devine Canines was in Balboa Park in San Diego. I just advertised on like Craigslist and Facebook and things like that. And I was like, come ye, come all. If you have dogs with problems, bring it on and I'll train it for free. And like, I'll just help you out. And it grew from like 2 people to 5 people to 20 people to so many people that I had to do multiple days, to then I just started getting clients from that. And then I had to switch that later on down the road. I ended up switching that to like a veterans only meetup where like any veteran that had any dog issues, free of charge, you come and I'll train your dog. And that's kind of like how I got the word on the street that there was a new dog trainer in town. And I was like, wow, I'm doing what I love to do. I'm making money doing it. I guess I should have a business account. I guess I need a LLC, and I didn't know anything about business. I've never taken a business class in my entire life.
That is such a common theme in these podcasts.
It absolutely is. That's why we select these guests. It's planned.
Yeah.
No, I did not know that. But so do you have you had really no plan? It just kind of developed.
It's exactly. I just kind of followed, in a sense, my heart. And in all honesty, I feel like I see this very commonly in especially the special operations community, where it's like you're on the varsity team and then all of a sudden you're not on the team anymore. And then it's like, now what do you do? Yes, you still have your friends that you talk to, but you're not part of the team anymore. You're
starting over.
Yeah, it's exactly it. So you struggle to find your identity. In the beginning, I didn't even tell people I was a Navy SEAL. You know what I mean? I wasn't like John Devine, Navy SEAL.
That's absolutely unheard of.
Yeah.
Yeah. You're a pioneer. He's a trendsetter.
Because I just wanted to have people come to me because I was training their dog, and I wanted them to like the product, and I wanted them to like what I was doing. And it took me about a year of doing that before I even openly used my background to my advantage, in that, some really good close business mentors of mine were like, John, if you graduated from Harvard, would you hide your diploma in your desk and not let people know that you went to Harvard? And I'm like, no, like most lawyers and stuff, they usually just put it in their wall in the background, and everyone that sits down, they see it. I'm like, that's what I'm saying. Like, you don't have to push it in people's face, but you don't have to hide the fact that's your background, because there is a certain sense of credibility that you get from doing that does give you an advantage over so many other people. And I'm like, well, maybe, but I think you have to kind of rediscover yourself and not be afraid to build your own identity.
Is that why you did? I mean, did you do it the way you did it? Were you hiding your resume because you wanted to be? I don't know. Why did you do that? Why did you keep the Navy SEAL thing in the background?
I think a little bit was maybe a little bit of like vanity and stubbornness all mixed together, and that I didn't want people to be like, oh, they're only getting their dog trained because he's a Navy SEAL.
Right.
You know what I mean? I wanted people to want to come to me because they knew I was good at what I did.
Right.
Yeah. See people showing up just because you were a SEAL.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Oh, we can see what a SEAL looks like. That's it? Fuck.
Yeah.
Thought they were like 6'4".
Yeah.
Chiseled. This guy's a ginger, I think.
Lightning bolts out their arse.
Yeah. So you start your business, and did you write a business plan? Did you get no CPA, like accounting, none of that? Just
nah. Who needs those numbers?
The hell with taxes. What's the IRS?
So you had to build on what Baker's saying. You already had the skills for your product. What's been your biggest struggle in the business side?
So in the business side, I still struggle with business stuff every day because every day I'm still learning, and I'm still learning stuff. I mean, I learned this year, more about more tax deductions, and I'm learning all sorts of stuff about how to mix in a nonprofit in a business. Like, there's all sorts of stuff that I'm still continuing to learn to keep things kosher. But
what's that sound? It never ends?
It never does end. That's the thing. It never ends. It's always a process. But I will tell you this, I could have gone to school for business for 3 years and then started my business. And then maybe I would have not made some mistakes. But I already made those mistakes and already learned from them already.
Yeah.
So I think so many people do get paralyzed in the like, oh, I don't know anything about business yet. I don't know anything about starting a business. It's like, you will.
Yeah.
You'll learn. You're going to fuck it up, but then you're going to learn.
It's the best way, in my opinion.
Yeah.
It is.
I think it would be a little helpful for the audience just to bring up, John, your funding of how you funded this whole thing and how you bet on yourself. Because one of the things I kind of learned from John in business when he was first starting, with his dog, when he was going to war with it, he was training like his life depended on it and everyone else's depended on it. So when he went into business and he was just starting out, it was the same mentality. But you have to convince other people with money to start bringing the money into you. But the first step is betting on yourself.
That's a good point.
Yeah, so, I mean, what Kevin here, he's pretty much talking about is that's true. So, like, when people ask about why I trained so much when I was in the teams, going back to the teams for 1 second here, is that, there was definitely so many days, almost every day, when we would finish training for the day, I snuck my dog out of the kennel. All right, so if they come after me for this, it's your guys' fault. But yeah, so I broke the rules all the time. And that I snuck my dog out of the kennel. He came home with me because I trained him after hours. We were doing laser work training around the house. Training never stopped for me because I knew that eventually my life and my brother's lives were going to depend on how much training went into this dog. So it never ended. And I didn't want to be in a position where I was in Afghanistan thinking like, did I train my dog enough? When I was there, I knew I trained my dog enough. And I kind of went like, if I get killed, if anything bad happens, it's not because I didn't train my dog enough. It's just because it wasn't my day today. I didn't have like that voice like, ooh, I should have done more. And that's
you maxed it out.
I maxed it out. And that's the thing I tell all handlers. So any handler that's listening to this right now, whether it be law enforcement, military, anyone that's going to go into harm's way in any way, if you can fix that one thing in the back of your mind, that is, did I train my dog enough? If you know you trained your dog enough, meaning that you trained him as much as you could, and I'm not saying don't talk to your family, don't do anything else but train your dog. But if you train your dog as much as you could, given the life that you have, if you've trained him at the max, the max amount of time, you will not have that voice that wonders, did I train enough? You'll know that you trained enough.
Got it. So, what does your business do now? So, like, you train dogs for the civilian world? Do you train dogs for military, LEO, like bodyguard dogs? Dogs that protect rich people's kids? Like,
So Devine Canines currently, we do personal protection dogs. So we do that for families, meaning we have dogs that are trained to neutralize threats, but they have to be social enough to be able to snuggle with your kids. And that's a special blend of dog. You'll hear this, I say a lot, different dogs for different jobs. So the same kind of dog that's going to be a personal protection dog might not be the same kind of dog that you want in a SEAL platoon. So it's just different types of dogs for different jobs. We'll do that. We'll do behavior modification for everybody's dog. So if you have a dog that has issues, whether it be aggression, whether it be fear issues, reactivity, that's the stuff that we love to be able to problem solve. A lot of problem solving there. We also do consulting for law enforcement and military, meaning that we'll do seminars and workshops and things like that to help make teams more tactically efficient, especially with law enforcement, in that in the law enforcement realm, like the canine and their tactical teams are not cohesively working together enough. It's just one of those things. And like in our realm of special operations, we don't know it any other way.
Yeah.
There is no such thing as like, do we send in Alpha Squad, or do we send in the dog? It's like, no, we're sending in the team, and we'll figure it out however we need to.
Right.
It's not one or the other. You just kind of you do what needs to be done. But
it's not binary necessarily.
Exactly. Well, in law enforcement, they're just not integrated enough.
Right.
That's basically what it is.
It's so I was at 18 Delta. It was the same thing. 18 Delta's on the team. He's in the stats or so forth. But law enforcement is just now coming around to getting medics to go in with them instead of hanging out in an ambulance somewhere.
We talked last night about like the evolutions in product development and things like that. Between like 2001 and 2010 and 2010, 2015. And like, it's basically been the same fight in the Middle East, same types of buildings by and large, same objective for the most part. Product development and evolution, I would say, has slowed down from, the first, say, 10 years of that war. The dog thing seems to be like in the very early stages, so to speak, with you're seeing more about dogs, you're hearing more about dogs.
Mm-hmm.
Like, is there still a long way of growth, a long way to go in the evolution and development of like tactics and different dog breeding and stuff like that?
Yes. So I still see there's a lot of room to grow. But if you look at history, I'm just hoping that we don't lose a lot of what we've gained once we're no longer in a constant state of warfare. Meaning, like, when I was at the SEAL teams, I didn't know SEALs had dogs in Vietnam. That was not a thing. That was not something they briefed us on. There was no lessons learned from prior wars in the SEAL teams and dogs. No, we didn't have that. All those handlers were long gone. That program was long shut down. All those lessons learned were long forgotten, probably maybe in some folder somewhere collecting dust. So my hope, and really what my mission really is to make sure that all these handlers didn't go overseas and get this experience for nothing. In the sense that all this experience and knowledge is lost if you don't pass it on to the next generation. Meaning that they can take the lessons learned and not make those same mistakes, and they can learn more lessons and build on top of what you've already built.
Right. So in what I was getting with that is like, you're having to like constantly like learn and stuff like that and improve your skill set and all that stuff, and like different types of dogs. Like you weren't. Did you work with personal protection dogs when you were in the teams? So
personal protection dogs was something. It's funny because I didn't know anything about personal protection dogs while I was in the teams. I was, you're in your own little biodome there, and I almost felt like I was reinventing the wheel because my dog that I had, he was so social. He was great with other people. And I was like, man, wouldn't that be a great idea if people had these dogs for their own personal protection? I was like, that would be great. Meanwhile, people have been doing this for years. I didn't know,
What could we call it?
Like
A personal protection dog.
Yeah, so I thought in the moment, I thought I invented it, you know what I mean? I was like, I'm a genius.
Then you Google it, and like there's 7,000 different websites about it.
Yeah.
What's your favorite part of the job? Like, what's the most rewarding for you?
So I love dogs, obviously, so that's a given. But really, I love people too, and to be able to work with dogs to help people and help dogs at the same time, that's what really does it for me. In that I love seeing the relationship and how we have the most cohesive relationship in the history of Earth is between man, well, women too. Don't want to keep you guys excluded there, but we'll say mankind, not going to say people kind. Like,
Yeah, that's true though.
we're still going to say mankind. But in the history of mankind, dogs and mankind have had the closest, most cohesive relationship that's ever existed between two species. I would say horse is a close second.
Yeah. Well, dog is definitely older in that relationship. Yeah, anthropologically speaking. Mm-hmm. So you've mentioned that you need a specific kind of dog for the personal protection. I'm sure that everybody listening out there right now is wondering what kind of breed they should go after for a personal protection dog. What kind of dog does it take to be protective and still snuggly?
All right.
Golden Retriever.
Chihuahua. No.
Yeah. Pug. They're savages.
Short snout. Can't smell anything.
A Golden Retriever Chihuahua mix. So different dogs for different jobs, but also what is the capability of yourself? Meaning that, like, I like to use firearms as an analogy for defense. Meaning that, would you rather have, a 50 caliber Macmillan sniper system? Well, that's great if you're fucking awesome at using it. You can do a lot with that if you know what you're doing.
I don't even know what that is.
Yeah. But like, basically it's just, a 50 caliber sniper rifle that can take someone out from a mile away.
Yeah, I have no need for that.
It's just great if like I said, if you know how to use that, that is awesome. But if you don't know how to use any of that and you just need to have like a weekend course on how to defend yourself, well, maybe a double barrel shotgun is going to help you if you know how to load it, are safe with it, and know how to use it, So I use that with dogs in a sense. Like, do you want a dog that is a man eater? Well, maybe yeah. Like me, I kind of like having my dogs that are pretty capable. In that, I'll also sometimes use car analogies. Like, if you're a professional race car driver, maybe having a Ferrari is a good idea. You know what I mean? Yeah. But if you're a 16-year-old kid who's never driven before, maybe having a Ferrari is not a good idea.
Yeah.
So I do that with dogs in the sense that, everybody I don't want to generalize, but a lot of companies out there doing personal protection dogs, they just want to have the biggest, baddest dogs out there so they can say they have the biggest, baddest dogs. Well, like I said, that's just like selling a bunch of Ferraris to everybody, and that's just not the right thing to do.
Yeah, people that can't drive a stick don't need a stick.
Exactly. But if they want a really good car, maybe you give them a Mustang. And they're going to be perfectly happy in that Mustang because that Mustang fits everything they need to be able to do, and it's safe. Or maybe they need a Ford Taurus. You know what I mean? Like, there's different dogs for different jobs. And you have to be a master of being able to pair the right family, the right client with the right dog. And more than anything else, if there's any dog trainers out there that are like up and coming, give clients what they need, not what they want all the time. Give them what they need.
That's sound advice.
Yeah, there's a lot of parallels between this and medicine.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Treat problems, not symptoms?
Yeah, well, I mean, you get patients coming in demanding antibiotics and whatnot, and you're like, you don't have a bacterial infection, you have a virus. I want a Z-Pack. Yeah, okay, well.
I saw Dr. Phil. I know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Well, listen, man. John, it's been a pleasure. Thank you for coming on. Learned a ton.
Where can people find you?
If you want to learn more, you can follow us, Devine Canines, on Instagram, Facebook. If you want to learn more about our nonprofit, the Rescue 22 Foundation, you can find us at rescue22foundation.org.
Push that real quick. What does Rescue 22 do?
So the Rescue 22 Foundation, we do service dogs, ESA, and companion dogs for veterans, free of charge. We do it to any disabled veteran. And, we were able to do this through the generous sponsorships and collaborations and commitments we're getting from companies and whatnot. But our mission really is just to, we don't think that every veteran out there needs to have a dog, but we're saying there are a lot of veterans out there that do benefit from having dogs.
Yeah, I think maybe it was Dakota said this. I don't remember who it was, but no vet has ever committed suicide that actually had a service dog or something along those lines, or like the percentage is like a fraction of a percentage.
I would hesitate to say it was zero, but
it's really low.
Yeah.
No, dogs are awesome.
Yeah,
man.
I mean, we get the 22 is from the statistic that everyone can be aware of, that we're losing 22 veterans a day, and we're hoping that our name becomes obsolete. We're hoping that 22 is not a real number, in the future.
Yeah. So, For Baker, Tier, and John, thanks for coming on, dude.
And Dexter.
And
What's up, buddy?
Dexter. And you've been listening to Launch Code.